Sometimes, two people love each other with a purity that feels rare in this world. They choose each other. They pray for each other. They imagine a future together. And yet, they still lose each other. Not because the love was wrong, not because their hearts were weak, but because the one who controls destinies saw a storm ahead that you were too in love to notice. He separates two hearts, to save one of them from heartbreak, or to prepare both of them for a love that is bigger, safer, and more blessed than anything they could have built right now. My dear listener, if you've ever asked in tears, why did I lose someone I loved so deeply? This is the answer you were meant to hear tonight. Chapter 1. When a love arrives before its time. There are moments in life when two hearts meet in a way that feels almost supernatural, a connection so effortless, so comforting, so familiar that you find yourself wondering how someone who was once a stranger suddenly feels like a place your soul has known for years. You talk, and the conversation feels like a safe room after a long storm. You sit together, and the silence itself feels warm. You begin to imagine a future that finally makes sense, a life where the pieces fall exactly where they belong. But here is the truth almost no one wants to accept. Sometimes the love is real, the hearts are sincere, and the intentions are pure, yet the timing is completely wrong. A love that arrives too early is like a seed planted in frozen soil. The seed is perfect, but the season is not ready to protect it, nurture it, or allow it to grow into what it was meant to be. You may think you're ready, but your heart has lessons it still needs to learn. You may believe they are the one, but they still carry wounds that only solitude and difficult journeys can heal. You might feel certain that your futures align, but there is maturity, patience, emotional discipline, and spiritual grounding that both of you must build before you can carry the weight of a halal relationship together. Sometimes separation is not a rejection of your love. It is simply the universe holding you back so you do not build something fragile on a foundation that was never meant to hold it. And even though it hurts deeply, the one who writes every chapter of your story knows that giving you someone too early can break you in ways you do not see yet. A love that is rushed becomes heavy. A love that grows before its season becomes complicated. But a love that is given at the right time when both hearts are stable, healed, and aligned with purpose becomes a blessing that lasts, not a moment that collapses under pressure. And maybe, just maybe, what you lost today is not gone forever. It is simply waiting for the moment when both souls mature into the people they are meant to be before they can truly walk together. Chapter 2. When separation is a hidden form of protection. There are times in life when you cling to someone with everything inside you, believing with full certainty that this person is your calm, your future, your comfort, your destiny. You defend the connection, you justify their flaws, you forgive their silence, you excuse their distance not because you are naive, but because your heart is sincere, loyal, and full of hope. You convince yourself that losing them would feel like losing oxygen, that walking away would leave you incomplete. So you hold on even tighter, afraid that if you let go, you will never find a love like this again. But what you cannot see in those moments is that sometimes the heart becomes blind, and love begins to disguise the very dangers that your future is trying to warn you about. People show their truth in small ways: a lack of commitment, emotional instability, an inability to lead you toward a peaceful future, or a habit that could destroy the stability you dream of after marriage, yet your attachment silences every warning. You see the sweetness of the present moment, but not the storms waiting behind it. And this is where divine protection enters quietly. Not dramatically, not violently, but in a way that feels confusing at first. Messages stop flowing the way they used to. Conversations become heavy, misunderstanding grows, distance appears for no clear reason, and slowly the bond weakens, even though the desire to hold it together remains strong. You feel hurt, abandoned, replaced, or unimportant. But what is really happening is that you are being pulled away from a future that would have broken you in ways your heart cannot handle yet. Sometimes, the person you are fighting to keep is the very person who would have drained your peace after marriage, or limited your growth, or held you back from becoming who you needed to be. And because you cannot see that future, the separation feels like punishment, when in reality, it is protection. It is the unseen mercy that saves you before you realize what you were walking into. Protection does not always come wrapped in ease. Sometimes it comes wrapped in heartbreak, tears on your pillow, and questions you don't have the answers to. But protection is still protection, even when it hurts. You are being guided away from a door that your heart wanted but your soul didn't need. You are being freed from a path that would have led you to emotional exhaustion, spiritual confusion, or a life where your worth would be slowly forgotten. One day, maybe months, maybe years from now, you will look back with clearer eyes and understand that losing this person was a turning point, a silent rescue, a moment your life was gently redirected towards something healthier, kinder, and more stable. You will realize that what you wanted so desperately was not necessarily what was good for you, and that the one who knows every future chose to protect you long before you could protect yourself. And when that day comes, you will be grateful that some heartbreaks happened exactly when they did. Chapter 3. When love becomes a test of your heart, there comes a stage in some relationships where the connection itself becomes the mirror through which you discover who you really are. It is easy to love someone when everything is peaceful, when messages are consistent, when the future looks clear. But the true weight of a love reveals itself when your patience is tested, your emotions become overwhelming, and your priorities start to shift in ways you never expected. Sometimes you love someone so deeply that you begin to lose pieces of yourself without realizing it. You adjust your values just to keep them close. You compromise your boundaries to avoid upsetting them. You hide your struggles because you fear they will misunderstand you. You make yourself smaller so they will not feel threatened by your strength. And slowly, a love that once felt like protection turns into a test of your identity, your discipline, and your ability to remain grounded when your heart is tempted to drift. A connection that was meant to remind you of your purpose can slowly become a distraction from it. You start skipping your goals, delaying your dreams, neglecting your emotional healing, and pushing aside the responsibilities that once shaped your character. The love becomes so consuming that everything else begins to fade, not because the person is bad, but because your attachment has outgrown your balance. And this is where the test begins. Do you still choose growth when your heart wants comfort? Do you still choose discipline when your emotions want shortcuts? Do you still choose your creator when your desire for this person becomes louder than your commitment to your own soul? If your love strengthens your character, protects your values, and brings peace to your inner world, then the connection is a blessing. But if the love demands that you sacrifice your priorities, silence your needs, or compromise your spiritual direction, then the connection becomes a test not to destroy you, but to reveal your weaknesses so you can rise above them. Even the most beautiful heart can fail when it becomes attached more to creation than to the one who created it. And sometimes the separation between two people happens because one or both of them needed to be pulled back toward a healthier version of themselves. The distance is not always a sign of failure. Sometimes it is a silent invitation to rebuild your relationship with your own soul before trying to build a relationship with someone else. Think of it this way. You were meant to love deeply, but never at the cost of losing your inner harmony. You were meant to feel connection, but never at the expense of your purpose. You were meant to care for someone, but never to the point where you forget the person you were before they arrived. And when the test becomes too heavy, the separation becomes a reset, a painful but necessary moment that helps you rediscover your strength, your faith, your self-worth, and your direction. You are not being punished. You are being realigned. You are being reminded that the heart was created to love deeply, but also to return to balance whenever it drifts too far. One day, when you look back with a healed heart and clearer eyes, you will realize that the love you thought was meant to stay forever was actually meant to teach you who you needed to become. Chapter 4. When the future is written, but the present is not ready yet. There are moments in life when two souls cross paths in a way that feels almost scripted, as if the universe arranged a meeting that was destined long before you ever breathed your first breath. The connection forms effortlessly, the comfort feels ancient, and something inside you whispers, "This person is meant to be part of my life." You feel it in their voice, in the way they understand your silence, in the way their presence steadies your heartbeat. It is not ordinary attraction, it's a recognition that goes deeper than logic. But what most people never understand is that destiny does not unfold in straight lines. Two people can be written for each other in the future, yet completely unprepared for each other in the present. You may feel ready for love, ready for commitment, ready for nikah, but your heart might still carry wounds that would destroy the relationship if it began too soon. They may look emotionally available, but they might still be healing from things they cannot talk about. You may desire stability, but your life might still be too chaotic for a marriage to survive. This is one of the most misunderstood truths about love. Being written for each other does not mean meeting at the perfect time. Sometimes two souls are destined, but the season is not. Imagine trying to build a home during a storm. The foundation is good, the materials are strong, the design is beautiful, but the weather will destroy everything before it can stand. In the same way, two hearts can be pure and sincere, but the storm inside one person or both can ruin the connection long before it grows into something sacred. You might need to discover your purpose before you can understand what kind of partner you truly need. They might need to grow into their responsibilities before they can lead a household with wisdom and calm. You may need to face hardships alone that will strengthen your patience. They may need to break certain habits, heal certain wounds, or become spiritually grounded before they can offer you the stability you deserve. And so, even when two people feel meant for each other, separation becomes the bridge between who they are now and who they must become to make the future work. It is not a rejection of the connection, it is the preparation of the connection. Without this space, without this time apart, without this slow molding of character, the relationship would collapse under the weight of its own immaturity. Many people think destiny is simply about two hearts meeting. But true destiny is about two hearts becoming ready, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and financially, to carry the responsibility that love demands after marriage. Sometimes destiny needs silence, distance, tears, and years of growth before the written chapter can finally open. And here is the beautiful yet painful reality. There are stories where people separate not because their bond is weak, but because their future together is too strong to be built with their current selves. Life forces them to walk separate roads so they can return with greater wisdom, deeper peace, and stronger character than they ever imagined. And in that transformation, The love that once felt impossible begins to make sense, not because it suddenly appeared, but because both hearts finally became the version of themselves that the future required. One day, you might look back and realize that the separation was not the end of your story. It was simply the chapter where both of you were being prepared for the moment destiny finally unveils its plan. Chapter 5. When your doer and their doer are not heading in the same direction, there is a truth about love that very few people talk about, because it is delicate and painful, yet deeply revealing. Sometimes you pour your heart into a connection, believing with full sincerity that this person is the answer to every prayer you whispered in the quietest corners of your nights. You ask for them with hope, with longing, with a certainty that feels unshakable. You imagine standing with them on your nikah day. You imagine the home you will build. You imagine the peace you will share. And in your mind, it feels so perfect that you cannot imagine any world in which this story does not continue. But the unseen world has details you cannot see. And the beauty of destiny is that you never walk it alone. While you are praying for them, they might be praying for clarity. While you are asking for a future, they might be asking for guidance. While you are asking for union, they might be asking for emotional healing. While you are holding on to the connection, they might be asking for a sign to let go. And in the silence of these prayers you will never hear destinies begin to shift. You may believe the two of you are walking toward the same dream, but their heart might be seeking something entirely different, even if they don't understand it themselves. The one who listens to every whisper, every tear, every plea, every fear, hears both of you. And sometimes the separation happens not because one person is wrong, but because your doers are traveling in completely different directions. There are people who love you, yet fear they cannot give you the life you deserve. There are people who care for you, yet feel they are not emotionally ready for the responsibility of a marriage. There are people who admire your loyalty, yet feel their own hearts are too unstable to build a future. And there are people who dream of becoming better, but know that they must walk alone to reach the version of themselves you need. If your dua asks for a partner who brings peace, and their dua asks for time to grow, destiny will protect both of you by slowing the connection down or breaking it gently apart. If your dua asks for a love that lasts, and their dua asks for guidance that may not include you, destiny will not force two hearts to walk a path neither is fully aligned with. This is why some separations feel so confusing. You feel the connection was strong. You feel the love was sincere. You feel the future was possible. Yet everything still falls apart. It's because your heart was asking for one story, and their heart was asking for another. The beauty of this truth is that neither of you is wrong. Neither of you is to blame. Neither of you is a villain in the story. You were simply two souls praying for different outcomes, and the one who writes destiny answered each of you in the most protective way possible. You may not understand it today. You may not understand it for months. But there will come a time when you will look back and realize that every unanswered message, every silent distance, every closing door was simply a response to a dua you didn't know was being made on the other side. And one day, perhaps much later, you might even thank fate for separating you from a path that was never meant to carry both hearts at the same speed. Because the person who is fully aligned with your dua, your values, your peace, and your future will never require this level of confusion or emotional conflict. They will meet you where your heart has already been waiting. Chapter 6. When separation is preparing you for a love greater than what you lost, there is a kind of heartbreak that doesn't just bruise the heart, it reshapes it. When two people who truly cared for each other are separated, the pain does not simply come from losing them. It comes from losing the version of yourself that existed with them. You mourn the conversations, the future plans, the inside jokes, the gentle promises, the moments that made you smile without effort. You replay memories in your mind, hoping to understand where everything shifted, why the story ended, and how something that felt so meaningful could dissolve into silence. But life has a way of revealing its wisdom slowly, piece by piece, in ways that only make sense after time has softened the ache. What you see as an ending may actually be the beginning of a transformation your heart has needed for years. Separation is rarely just separation. It is the quiet, delicate process of being reshaped for a future you cannot imagine yet. You see, every heartbreak teaches you something you were too comfortable to learn before. It teaches you how to value yourself, how to protect your peace, how to understand your emotional boundaries, and how to love without losing your identity. It teaches you patience, compassion, humility, and the art of letting go gracefully even when your hands are trembling. It forces you to sit with your thoughts, confront your insecurities, and break open the longing inside you so that something more honest can grow. You begin to realize that not all love stories are meant to be lived. Some are meant to prepare you. Some people enter your life only long enough to break parts of you that were preventing your growth. Some arrive only to show you what you desire in a spouse, what you cannot compromise on, and what type of love brings peace instead of chaos. Some souls are brought to you to awaken feelings you didn't know you were capable of, only to leave so that you never settle for anything less again. Slowly, as you rebuild yourself, you start noticing the signs of a quiet transformation. The tears are not as heavy as they once were. The memories no longer sting as sharply. The name that once caused your chest to tighten now feels like a chapter that shaped you rather than defined you. Something inside you begins to shift, a sense of strength, a sense of clarity, a sense of emotional maturity that was not there before. This healing is not accidental. It is preparation. You are being shaped for a love that does not confuse you, a love that does not make you question your worth, a love that does not demand you chase it, prove yourself, or shrink to fit inside it. You are being prepared for a person who will see you as a responsibility, not an option, someone whose presence calms your storms instead of creating new ones. Someone who will value your loyalty, honor your purity, and protect your heart as if it were something sacred. Someone who will stand beside you in prayer, in growth, in hardship, and in joy. Someone who will choose you not only when it is easy, but especially when it is difficult. But here is the most beautiful part. When you finally meet the person who is written for you, you will understand why nothing else worked. You will realize that every closed door, every unanswered message, every painful goodbye, and every tearful night was guiding you toward a love with more depth, more stability, more peace, and more sincerity than anything you have ever experienced. Your separation was not a punishment, it was a recalibration of your destiny. You were not abandoned, you were redirected. You were not left empty, you were being emptied so that something greater could fill you. You were not unloved, you were being prepared to be loved in a way that your past self would not have been able to receive or appreciate. And when the person who is truly written for your heart arrives, you will look back at all the pain you endured and whisper with a soft, healed smile, "Now I understand why it didn't work before. This was what I was being prepared for all along." Chapter 7. When two souls drift apart to discover who they truly are, there comes a point in every heartbreak where the pain begins to settle into silence. The messages that once lit up your phone become memories. The voice you were used to hearing fades into the background of your mind. The presence that once made you feel safe becomes a distant echo, and somewhere between holding on and letting go, you realize that life is slowly taking you back to yourself. Separation, as painful as it is, forces you to confront the parts of your identity you buried inside the relationship. Maybe you became dependent on their reassurance. Maybe you forgot how strong you were on your own. Maybe you relied on their attention to feel valuable. Maybe you shaped your dreams around their presence without ever asking what your soul wanted when standing alone. Losing them feels like losing your emotional home, but in reality, it is the doorway leading you back to the person you were before love reshaped your world. There is a silent rebirth that happens when two people who love each other deeply are pulled apart. In the beginning, it feels like devastation. Your heart aches in places you didn't know existed, your nights stretch longer, and your mind loops through what if and why me until you feel exhausted. But slowly, almost invisibly, you begin to rediscover pieces of yourself that were overshadowed. You learn to make decisions without waiting for someone's approval. You learn to enjoy your own company again. You learn that your worth does not depend on who chooses to stay. You learn to heal without rushing the process. You learn to trust the timing of your own journey. This rediscovery is not just healing, it is transformation. It is the process of relearning who you are when you are not someone's lover, someone's comfort, or someone's priority. You begin to see your strengths more clearly. You begin to value your dreams more deeply. You begin to understand your emotional boundaries with more maturity. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to realize that love is not just about finding the right person, it is about becoming the right person. Some separations happen so that you can grow into the individual you were always meant to be. Because if you had stayed in that relationship, you would have remained a smaller version of yourself, dependent, uncertain, emotionally overstretched, or spiritually depleted. By pulling two souls apart, destiny creates the space necessary for both to evolve, to rise, to mature, to expand, to build a stronger foundation within themselves. Only then, only after both hearts have learned who they truly are, can they recognize the kind of love that was meant to last. And sometimes, after years of growth and distance, two people return with a depth they could not offer each other in the past. But other times, and this is equally beautiful, they move forward into futures where they meet entirely different souls who match the healed version of themselves perfectly. Separation may feel like loss, but in reality, it is revelation. It reveals your strength. It reveals your wounds. It reveals your purpose. It reveals your emotional capacity. It reveals what kind of love you are ready to receive and what kind of love you must never settle for again. In this way, losing someone you love deeply can become the very moment you start becoming the person you were always meant to be. And when you finally look back with a heart that is no longer hurting but wiser, calmer, softer, and more whole, you will realize that the separation didn't destroy you, it unveiled you. Chapter 8. When distance becomes the bridge to your true destiny, there comes a moment, after the tears settle and the ache softens, when you finally begin to see the bigger picture. You start realizing that the distance you hated so much was not a punishment, it was direction. It was life quietly guiding you away from a path that could no longer carry the weight of your growth, toward a chapter that needed you to walk in alone. With time, you begin to understand that not every person you love is meant to stay forever. Some are meant to enter your life briefly, to awaken parts of you that had been asleep, to teach you emotional lessons you didn't know you needed, and to prepare you for a future that is far different and far better than what you imagined with them. You start noticing a strange kind of peace. The memories don't hurt the way they used to. The future doesn't feel as frightening as before. and your heart begins to trust the unfolding of your destiny again. You realize that the distance didn't break you, it built you. It taught you resilience. It softened you in some ways and strengthened you in others. It showed you that you can survive heartbreak and still be capable of loving deeply again. And somewhere in that acceptance, you begin to walk into the world with a new understanding. What is meant for your heart will never require you to lose yourself, and what is truly written for your future will meet you with clarity, not confusion. You may not know where your story is heading, but you can finally breathe, knowing this. The chapter that awaits you is not empty. It's simply waiting for the right soul to join it at the right time. My dear listener, if you've made it this far, I want you to remember something gently but firmly. You were never separated from someone you loved because you were unworthy or unlovable or forgotten. Sometimes two hearts drift apart not to break, but to breathe, not to end, but to grow, not to punish, but to redirect both souls toward the futures they are truly meant for. The story you wanted may have closed, but the story you need is only beginning. And the person who is written for you will never arrive confused, unprepared, or unsure about you. They will walk into your life with clarity, commitment, stability, and a heart that recognizes your value the moment they see it. So tonight, breathe a little deeper. Let your shoulders soften. Let the pain settle into wisdom. And trust that your destiny is unfolding exactly the way it is meant to. Before you leave, tell me in the comments, which country are you watching from, and what time is it right now? Your presence here matters. Your heart matters. Your journey is sacred. And remember, the one who separated you from what you thought you wanted is preparing you for a love that will finally feel like home.